sponsored by them.
You're
So
sponsored by
yeah,
them.
anyone that buys a shirt, I get a spip off of that. So sell some
Nice.
shirts, Michelle. But awesome, take it away.
I wouldn't mind at all if you said you were sponsored by us. So everybody, if we haven't met yet, I'm Michelle Spina, the sales education manager at SolarEdge. I think that we have met some of you already, but I've been in solar for 13 years now. So I've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly, and we're in the good. We're in the hell yeah, great right now. So today I'm going to talk about SolarEdge and our advantages a little bit, but really focus in on NEM 3 as well as and how that applies to not only California, but what's coming up in other states, and how we can use it to build urgency with our homeowners really everywhere. Um, I'd be remiss to say to not say that Jason Dooley's also on the phone. He's from SolarEdge. He's actually the Powur, and it looks like he's from the witness protection. There he is. He is the Powur account rep on the SolarEdge side. So he manages everything Powur with the high level executives at Powur. Jason, you have anything you want to say before we start?
Not a whole lot. Just wanted to say hi to everybody out there. As Michelle said, my name is Jason Belli. I am the account manager for SolarEdge for Powur, based here in Los Angeles, and been in solar now for about 3 years. Been at SolarEdge for 3 years as well. So it's good to meet all you here on the call. I'll be here in the background, just quietly listening in. If there's any questions you may have for me on more of the account side with Powur, feel free to jump in at any time. I'll be monitoring the chat as well. So Michelle, if there's any chats that come up, I'll be sure to take this for you there. So
Sounds good.
that's all I have right there. So back to you guys.
All right, so I'm starting with some high stakes today because I want to give away some stuff. So I'm going to give away a SolarEdge Sales Elite ice chest that you can have in your car, 20 can cooler for being on the road, and a Travis Matthews SolarEdge branded hat. For anybody that can tell me, I am hearing that microinverters are the way to go. Why would I go with SolarEdge? So, what are some talking points that this team may say?
There's
Yeah.
a couple things.
Uh-oh. Okay, I can give away two things. So I'll say continue talking and then Brad next.
I think it's both Brads.
Oh, there's two Brads? Both Brads?
Let the new mentor go first. Thanks, Brad.
You're welcome, Brad.
Yeah, what I was going to say is, I've seen a couple of your trainings before, and what I remember that is a clear point is that if you look at microinverters, they individually have a different level of power per microinverter, so it may or may not be able to benefit the whole system. So the system it's kind of like comparable to like having multiple glasses of water or versus like a large bucket of water. If you're doing like an analogy, basically the different glasses of water, they may not get filled up all the way, or they might overflow with water, but you don't know how much each inverter is going to produce. But when you have like a large bucket, like a SolarEdge inverter, it allows you to have the whole bucket filled with water. So as a result of that, there's no energy loss, there's no power loss in looking at SolarEdge. Whereas with microinverters, they're going to be, some are going to be better than others, and so it's unclear what you're going to get from a microinverter. But with the SolarEdge inverter, you know exactly what you're getting. You get
All
the
right.
benefit.
Good one. Yeah. So you've seen the cups versus buckets analogy. Absolutely. So really, to simplify it for homeowners, and we'll talk about it a little bit too. It's higher efficiency. So with SolarEdge, because you can think of it as a big bucket, we're able to harvest more energy from the roof. I want to hear the pitch from Brad Stoller as well to see how you would say it.
I agree with that point. I would say the same thing, but I would just say there's no clipping because if you look at an end-phase microinverter, even their IQ8As, which is like the highest one now, if I'm using a 400-watt panel, I think that's only converting at like I forget what it is, but it's going to be like maybe like 60 watts per panel or something like that. With that, so you have a lot of clipping, and you also have a lot more because it's a microinverter is inverting the power on the roof. It's a lot more electronics on the roof, a lot more failure points. because where an optimizer, there's a lot less failure points in it as well. And the other one which I also like about it is, you know, I've been upselling just getting you have a battery ready and an EV ready inverter right off the bat. So I love that, with the energy hubs, you'd be like, hey, if you think about getting an EV, well, this inverter, you can add your charge station to it. Thinking about, getting a battery in the future, you can add your battery. So I think that's a great feature.
Awesome. Covered all of the bases. I will just do a quick recap of that. Brad's, if you can send me your address in the chat box, I'll make sure that we can get you over your prizes. Okay, so one thing here for first and foremost, if a homeowner says something like, I'm hearing that microinverters are the way to go, why should I go with SolarEdge? My first question to that homeowner is, what are you hearing? Or what have you heard about microinverters? What is the reason you're excited about microinverters? Because I want to level set. I want to get their perspective on what they know. Typically, when someone says something like this, it's two reasons. They have another bid, right? Or they know somebody who has a microinverter solution. I would bet money that at least 85–90% of homeowners, even in California, don't really know what a microinverter is, especially when compared to an optimized solution with SolarEdge. So that's what I would start with, level set, ask them what do they know? What have they heard? So that we know where to go with that discussion. But like the Brads said, higher efficiency. And let's break down what Brad Stoller said about the conversion of a microinverter. So you're converting at a roof level, at a module level with a microinverter solution. What that means is you can only convert a certain amount of energy at a module level. So because each one of those are converting each module's production. And so what happens is, Brad mentioned the actual maximum conversion. Let's say we have a 400-watt module. That's typically paired with a IQ8 Plus. The maximum amount that microinverter can convert is 290 watts. So if you had a 400-watt module, that homeowner thinks, hey, I'm getting 400 watts, right? That's usually what happens. What they're actually getting is the equivalent of a 290-watt module every single time, because it's going to clip that energy, like Brad said. So we lose energy at a microinverter level every time, as opposed to SolarEdge, where we have optimizers on the roof. Brad mentioned that there's a lot of technology on the roof. The most high-tech piece of a solar system is the inverter. So SolarEdge on purpose has one inverter. They have one brain in that whole system, because we want to have, the most critical point at one location on the wall, by the way, a less hot, a place that is undergoing less heat strain than what the roof is undergoing. These microinverters, you could have 30, 40 on the roof. There's 30 or 40 brains on that roof. That's the most critical point of that roof. Our optimizers, really what they're doing is maximizing the production on a module level. They're allowing those modules to work independently. So if there's shading, the rest of the modules won't be impacted. And they're moving around the energy and the voltage to make it most advantageous for the homeowner. So we're harvesting all of that energy in one central location on the wall, which is converting at the inverter level on the wall. This equates to 1 week of free energy for your homeowners. So I don't know if this team has side-by-sided an Enphase and a SolarEdge proposal, but you'll see that you consistently get higher production with SolarEdge. So if you're going against Enphase in the home, that's a good strategy as well. All right, so that's the basics. I want to mention to this team that we have, a whole ecosystem solution. You can sell this through Powur. So you have the home hub inverter, the energy hub. That's what it shows up in Solo. That is a fully flexible inverter that allows you to add batteries, allows you to add EV chargers now or later. So you can add up to 3 batteries per inverter. You can wire in the EV charger. And it allows your homeowners to have a whole ecosystem that's managed through the app, through My SolarEdge. Yeah, so Brad just gave a confirmation that solar shows SolarEdge with more kilowatt hours than Enphase on the same system. Yep, that has consistently been the case. And I used to sell both, you know, and so that's what I used to do in the home too, is side by side it and show more production. Okay, so let's talk about an interesting path, global path to solar and how that's trending to batteries. Does anybody know, quick nerdy fun fact, where solar started in the world? Where
Germany?
it really took off. Yep, Brad's right.
South
Germany.
Africa.
Germany first. They were the first. And that really took off in Germany. And then where did we travel to next? Does anybody have a guess?
China?
China was a good one, but the next one is actually Hawaii. So Hawaii blew up with solar. They're actually about 40% solar now. Their entire islands. So then we moved to California, we moved to East Coast, and moved to Midwest. So that's kind of been the trend with path to solar. And the really interesting thing is the path to batteries is exactly the same. So Germany is now, with every solar system, they're doing a battery solution. Hawaii, they have to. They don't have net metering. NEM 3.0 is where we're getting hit with in California right now. Everything's going to have a battery on it. Then the East Coast is anticipated. Even some places right now are getting rid of net metering. And then Midwest, Indiana, for example, just decided that they're getting rid of net metering. So we're going to see this path trend the same. Does anybody know why it would trend the same this way?
Because the governments are losing control and they want to control solar, so they don't like that people can benefit from leading the utility.
I mean, that is an interesting perspective. It's true. I mean, they do want to control it, but there's actually an interesting thing happening with the utilities in that the more solar that goes onto the grid, the less ability those utilities have to maintain the infrastructure. So they're actually getting, exporting. We're all exporting solar to the grid. They can't sustain the amount of solar that's being exported to the grid right now. And that is what happened in Germany, what happened in Hawaii, and what's happening now in California is there's so many people that are going solar that they're exporting that energy to the grid, and that utility company can't sustain that. And so that's why the trend is the same. The more solar, the closer you get to needing a battery on every system, because they're getting rid of net metering. Because net metering, getting rid of net metering, what does that do? That forces everybody into storing their own energy and not exporting it. So that's kind of what we're seeing. I wanted to give that tiny story because I think with homeowners sometimes this can show them the urgency of looking into a battery solution sometimes if you're in some of these states that are going to get hit next, essentially, But, I did just see today there was a article that came out that said over 850,000 people were without power this morning because of all of the crazy storms that are happening around the country. And I think that, every single state's getting hit with that type of thing. So we all have urgency to sell on, but let's talk about NEM 3 and what's going on in California, how we can get ahead of it. Just to level set, how many people here, if you can raise your hand on the chat or put it in the chat, how many people here sell in California right now? I know Anthony does. Based on the conversation earlier, I think that Brad is maybe on the East Coast. Some other people might be on the East Coast. But I know that this team has the opportunity to sell really anywhere. And a lot of Powur reps. Oh yeah, that Brad sells in California. Okay, other Brad. A lot of Powur reps, because of the NEM 3, have gotten their HIS licenses in California to sell from now to April. And so it is an opportunity. But Let's just level set on the time of use rates right now in these top 3 utilities. So the people that are impacted by NEM 3.0 are going to be PG&E, SCE, and SDG&E customers. So the big 3 monopolies. We have some municipalities in California, like SMUD or Burbank Electric, LADWP. They're not going to be impacted by this. But just to level set on what we're paying right now. So on peak, on average, it's 50 cents a kilowatt hour. Off peak, we're looking at 30 cents essentially in a lot of cases. That's going to give us some guidance on how we're going to be impacted by this. So some of the highlights, the thing that's going to dramatically change our selling value proposition is this export rate situation. The export rates are dramatically changing. They're also based on hourly values. They're going to be different every month. They're going to be different on weekends versus weekdays. So let's say, for example, today, I am going to be paying something different today, right now at 1:30 p.m. than I'm going to be paying today at 2:30 p.m. So they are, that's what I'm going to be exporting at. So I'm going to be getting a value that's different every single hour from the utility company if I decide to export my energy at that time. I'll show you a table that gives you an example. But another thing, NEM 3.0 will be a 9-year term for your homeowner, not a 20-year term. So that's not something that has been very commonly stated. But I think a lot of us right now that are selling in NEM 2, we're used to saying you're going to be grandfathered in for 20 years, right? NEM 3, they're going to be grandfathered in for 9 years. And that could be a good or bad thing. I mean, let's just cross our fingers that NEM 4 is better than NEM 3, so could be. This is another big change to the pitch and the bill review phase. The true up bill is going to be monthly, not annually. How does that impact the homeowner if their true up bill is monthly?
They're going to pay monthly payments.
Yep, Vivian's right. They're paying on a monthly basis. So if they owe the utility company, which if they're getting, installed in fall or winter, a lot of times they're going to owe the utility company during those months. And then typically, because of the annual true up, they're making up for that production in the summer, right? So in this case, if they owe something, they need to pay that month. So it's something we'll have to set the expectation for with the homeowner. Last, did you have something, Vivian?
No, I'm really shocked. I didn't know that.
Yeah, I mean, I will say that we're one of the last states that still have annual true-up bills. A lot of other states don't have annual true-ups anymore, but something definitely to set the expectation with the homeowner for. Oversizing of the system is permitted by no more than 50% of previous 12 months of usage. So that would mean you can oversize the system by 150% of their offset, their utility bill offset. Okay, so those are the major changes. Here's an example of the rate schedule. So this is an example of what I mean is if you export to the grid, you're getting a different rate for that export every single hour, essentially. This just happens to be a PG&E weekend schedule. So a couple of things to notice here. Remember, we pay the utility company 50 to 60 cents a kilowatt hour in some cases, right? In most of these different rate schedules here, no matter what, we are actually only getting back from them about 5 cents a kilowatt hour on average in this new schedule. So if we're paying 50 cents and we're getting back 5 cents, the answer is we don't want to export anymore. It's not worth it. We want to store our energy in a battery so that we can become our own power plant and we can discharge that battery at night instead of pulling from the grid. That's really what the market is going to go to. Really interesting thing here though. So if you notice, there's 2 hours in September. I call them power hours. I think Powur should actually do something with that marketing. But I call these power hours because you get a bounty for these 2 hours if you export. So if you export your energy at this time, you're going to get over $3 a kilowatt hour. So you're paying the utility 50 cents a kilowatt hour, but you're getting back over $3 a kilowatt hour. So what do we want to do there? If let's say we have a battery system because we have to in NEM 3, what do we do in those 2 hours? We dump it. Yeah, Anthony said, we dump that battery back onto the grid because we want to make money. We're making money in those 2 hours. We have estimated that that's about $1,200 your homeowner will make in those 2 hours if they export that every day in September. So that's a great return on investment adder to a battery if they're making $1,200 every year for 30 days out of that year, because they're exporting that energy. What are our thoughts on this new paradigm? Does this make sense with battery management? Yeah, Anthony, you have something?
That mid-April where it's just blank, are they just not getting anything for that time?
Yeah, so one quick caveat here is these tables, all 6 of them, so weekend, weekday, PG&E, Edison, and SDG&E, have not been 100% finalized because they're going back and forth on daylight savings time rates and how that might impact something. So I will say, so that's kind of what this is they just haven't finalized that portion of the table. I will say they're 99.999% final. So this type of structure where it's 5 cents on average you're getting back, and then those 2 hours where it's a lot, that's what we're going to see in terms of modeling. It just may slightly change. All right, great question. Anything else before we keep going? All right. So a couple of things, the reason why we call it the solar gold rush right now is because your homeowners have the ability to still qualify for NEM 2 if they get in before April 14th. And so that's the last day to submit for interconnection under NEM 2. We're getting dangerously close to that deadline. I'm sure everybody's feeling it. And so I want to talk today about some strategies that we can use to seamlessly transition ourselves into the new environment instead of hoping everything turns out fine in April and flipping the switch. So just a quick note that this is your last day to submit for interconnection under NEM 2. So how do we simplify NEM 3 for homeowners? I think it's a big challenge because a lot of times our homeowners don't even understand what net metering is, right? We're the ones educating them on that. And so the important thing, in my opinion, I'd love your feedback, is creating a simple elevator pitch where we can actually use it with the homeowner and simply explain to them what's happening while also building urgency. So this is my example. I would first ask the homeowner themselves, have you heard of the recent changes in California called NEM 3? What's your understanding of the changes? So we'll be able to gauge if that homeowner understands it or not. I would then go into, when you go solar, you send excess solar power back to the grid and receive credits from the utility company. It's called net metering. For California, this has provided a great opportunity for homeowners to save money on their electricity bills. In this new policy, NEM 3, the utility company will give homeowners less for the power they send back to the grid. Frankly, it's about 75% less than what you're being charged for your energy. That's pretty frustrating, right? This will make the return on investment on solar substantially longer for homeowners. The good news is I have a couple of options for you today. Getting your solar project approved by April 14th will ensure you're locked into the current policy with the best possible export rates. Or we can explore going with a solar battery, which allows you to become your own power plant. It will protect you from policy changes and provide power during an outage. What did you notice about this elevator pitch in particular?
Simple, not too much like in the weeds, I guess you can say. Like a lot of people do, I feel, overcomplicate it for customers, the whole
Yeah.
NEM changes and stuff like that. And yeah, this is just simple and dumbified, I guess,
Yeah.
in layman terms, right? Like we understand the high level stuff, but the customer can get this.
Right. Yeah, we got to simplify it for homeowners. I think elevator pitches are good for that. The thing that I want the team to think about is starting to give the homeowner two options. So you can get in by April 14th to get the export rates, or look, we have another option for you that's going to work just as good, solar battery, right? So easing into that, because we really only have about a month, realistically about a month until we have to really start getting good at batteries. And Bo says he likes to protect you from policy changes and giving two options. So I'm glad you noticed that, because that's how we still incorporate NEM 3 into the urgency for a battery today for that homeowner. It's like, look, NEM 3 is coming for everybody. If you go with a battery today, it's going to protect you from these types of policy changes, which happen all the time. So you can become immune to that and be your own power plant. I like to say be your own power plant because it makes it a little bit more exciting for homeowners and they understand, like, hey, look, I'm using that instead of, pulling from the grid. So how many of us right now, and this can be rhetorical, or you can say it, how many of us are selling against batteries today? Or maybe just not proactively bringing them up?
I'm personally not running into a lot yet. I'm anticipating, like you said, in a month or so, but I'm still not running into a lot of batteries right now.
Okay.
When I was at Semper Solaris, we probably sold over half of our deals for solar had batteries attached to it.
Yeah.
It seems like not as much since I've been at Powur. And so definitely a different idea and different target. But yeah, I mean, I think people know, and it historically, when people see batteries, the impression a lot of people get, people come back and they'll say, well, do I really need that? And they'll say, I heard the battery price is going to come down, and I keep telling them, I don't think it is. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I keep saying that, but everyone has this idea. This is kind of the knowledge that's out on the internet or among people saying that price is way too high. You're not going to get that much benefit, So just wait for a while and it'll come down. And I tell people all the time, it's not going down. They do keep going up, so.
Mm-hmm. And you can be confident that they're going to continue staying stagnant or going up, just simply because we are competing against electric vehicles. Batteries are all over the place. The demand is much higher than supply on resources for batteries. So
what I've heard from some people is that there's like a Ford F-150 battery for an electric car they're building for a Ford truck that has 100 kilowatt hour storage capacity, and that you can actually charge your house with the truck. And at first I was like, that's crazy, but then I heard it a few times and I'm like, well, maybe there's something to that. You know what I mean? So
no, it is true. It's called bidirectional charging. So that is something that we're moving towards in terms of being able to use your car for supplemental power into the house. That being said, the behavior we have to do in California is we're going to charge and discharge that battery every single day, right? So we have to use that battery every day, the solar battery, so that we can not pay for the utilities power. And that's the behavior of time of use. And using your car battery to do that is not effective or efficient. It's not feasible. So what I see is that probably some of your homeowners have a battery and a generator as a supplement. They will probably start having a battery and then use their car battery for additional supplement emergency as opposed to generators. But that solar battery is always going to be the automatic, consistent power for your house, because relying on your car battery is relying on the best case scenario in worst case circumstances. Like your car has to be charged in the garage, ready to plug in to actually use it in the house. And the F-150 is actually the only car right now that can do that bidirectional capability. I think there's one other one, Nissan, that is saying that they're coming out with it, but it's not there yet. And NEM 3 with California, the really interesting thing that's hard to wrap our head around is that in this new environment, the return on investment for your homeowners is going to be better if they have a battery than if they don't have a battery, which has never been the case here. It's like the return on investment with a battery is usually a bit longer because of the fact that export's not beneficial. The ROI is going to be better with a battery. So it's interesting. So my question to this group, and it sounds like Brad, you were selling quite a bit of batteries at Semper. And I would say to this team to try and start incorporating the either or, the battery into the conversation now, just so that you get the hang of it, because the challenge is going to be flipping that switch in April and assuming that you'll be a specialist at that time. Getting used to it is important. Brad Stoller, you have something?
The Brads are bogarting this
So
meeting.
good,
Sorry.
yeah.
Question for you. Do you guys have any sort of data or any feedback on install timelines with batteries? Because in my previous company, we, very similar to the other Brad, we got to the point we were selling about 50-60% batteries. And while that was great for like many reasons, like for the homeowner and maybe a little bit more profit margin, one of the things we started to notice is like our average install timeline was actually going up, and then actually having a portion of projects getting stuck because of various reasons, which means your cash flow is stuck. So like, how are you guys seeing this? Like, is there anything SolarEdge is noticing or going to try to help us with that? Or
yeah, super good point. Ultimately, it really is about partnering with installation partners that are experienced in installing batteries. SolarEdge requires all of the people that install our batteries to be certified in battery installations. We have some customers, for example, in Utah, that are selling 95% batteries, and they're doing same day installations. And it's really about the installation partner having the experience of installing batteries. So we have to get to a point where people are comfortable doing that. And municipalities are comfortable with the permitting, comfortable with the inspections, comfortable with all that. Because how long have you been selling, Brad, or in solar?
Maybe like 14 years.
Yeah. So you remember before, people were excited if the solar installation took 3 days.
Yeah.
Do you remember this? And
Sure, yeah.
now it's like people can do 3 installations in a day.
Well, it's not the actual physical install. Like, I'm in the East Coast.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were getting stuck with like interconnection and so like our install team could, depending on not like we had to do like any service work, that battery may add another day, but sometimes we could get it all done in a day. But it was like it was interconnection, and then it was just like, we're seeing a lot of fire code issues with batteries too, which got cleared up sort of, but not 100%, in certain jurisdictions. So it was just causing a lot of delays. And then we were using the LG chems for a while, and we had some customers waiting 6 to 9 months for batteries, which is like, them. I'm just saying, like, it became a very real issue that the battery projects were delaying stuff outside like our expertise, because every single one of my installers was LG certified, was SolarEdge certified. So it wasn't the install side, it was all the other stuff that was killing us. And like for a lot of us here, we get most of our commission at the install. So if installs are getting delayed because of battery, I just feel like it's like such a major thing that, we should be talking about this, and we should be like really honest about it,
No, totally agree. And I think that you brought up a couple of different ideas about that. Supply is one thing that in the last couple of years, supply of batteries has caused delays. The SolarEdge batteries specifically, we have a lot of supply for, and we have forecasted for NEM3 specifically to ensure that we have batteries. We have our own manufacturing plant for our battery solution, so it helps because it's a 2 GWh manufacturing plant. So I will say that supply is going to be off the table in terms of a challenge, and that's the side we can control. Except another thing that you mentioned, which is interconnection and policy. We have a whole policy team that works with the jurisdictions. And if something comes up, like for example, there was something recently, I don't know if you've seen these bollards that sometimes people have to have in their garage for battery installations. And our policy team works with those jurisdictions to say, our battery does or does not need that. One other piece we can control and we have controlled is the SolarEdge battery has the highest safety rating that is possible in the industry. So it's called UL 9540A certification. It essentially means it gets abused and it, they try to set it on fire. They try to run it over, all of that. And it's the highest safety standard. It has thermal sensors in it and fire suppression devices. So we have set ourselves up for making it easy with our solution.
Yeah, I don't mean to push back too hard on it.
No.
I just think that I think it's something to have
Yep.
I don't know what the average timeline is. I'm sure like Bo or Anthony knows in California, and I know in Massachusetts, but like I suspect it's going to it will increase with batteries, and it'd be just good to know, is it going to increase by 10 days? Is it going to increase by 2 months? And just to anticipate that, I feel like it's like we don't anticipate it. It's like kind of like pretending the elephant's not in the room. It's like, how is this going to affect our timelines?
No,
Can I say something? Sorry to
Brad.
over Brad this meeting, but I just in regard to the batteries in separate Solaris, what they started doing was they were splitting the solar and the battery jobs into 2 different projects.
Mhm.
So that way they were able to, because the battery would slow down the solar, and so they would do it in 2 different projects. And what they told us was the issue wasn't so much about the municipalities, that was an issue, but the bigger issue was in regard to finding enough electricians, because Boston's kind of like Northern California in that very expensive places to live. And it's hard to find enough electricians that are willing to install batteries and with the volume that we're creating and still be able to have a living wage in those areas, because we needed so many electricians with as many batteries as we were selling. So it was tough. We were Semper was #1 for the SGIP applications in California, and just we couldn't keep up with everything. And so it is a challenge, because I agree that the supplier, and this is great because Tesla Powerwalls were a huge mess for Semper Solaris. We stopped using Tesla because we got to go Enphase, because Tesla was having year and 18-month delays, and it was crazy. But it's good to have a supplier who has the benefit, but there's also an employment issue as well.
Do you think that's on the table? Can we as power reps now split a solar and battery job? Because we did the same thing in Massachusetts for different reasons. Like I said, because of interconnection issues, but if we could split it up, that could be a potential solution. But that would be, again, it's like, how is that going to affect us in a real practical sense? Does that mean our commission is held up till the battery? And if so, it's like the homeowner may be happy with solar, which is great, but we also need to understand the full picture of that.
I think one thing to keep in mind too, obviously, when we move into this new marketplace, consider we're going to be selling so many batteries, your pipeline's going to change. It's going to be similar to the experience maybe at Semper, where, you're going to have a longer pipeline of jobs that are coming in at higher revenue because obviously battery sales significantly higher. So there certainly will be challenges on the delay side, or on the permitting side, potentially with delays and all that. But ultimately, there's also probably going to be a reduction in the amount of jobs sold in general. So that should hopefully free up some time at these permitting offices there, to make sure they can process things quicker too. But at the end of the day, I think, there's a lot of things in motion to help reduce some of those concerns. They're justified for sure right now, because there are definitely challenges there. And then we got a couple of things on our side of things that, I don't want to get over our skis too much here, but there's a couple of things I'll be meeting with Powur's executive team on Monday to run through. some options where we could present products out there to homeowners that not only would be more cost effective, but potentially reduce the time to permitting and the install complexity substantially. So more to come on that, hopefully very soon. But ultimately just wanted to jump in and quickly share that there.
I know we're running out of time, Anthony, and that we talked about potentially doing 2 sessions. So I wanted to make sure that this team, at the very least, before we left, had all of these resources for NEM 3. So we have homeowner facing materials. If you want to scan this QR code, you'll have access to the portal. And these are going to easily help you explain what NEM 3 is for homeowners so that you can build urgency. There's an FAQ, there's an interactive guide, so that you don't have to be the one explaining all of it. So wanted to make sure you had that. And I think this whole team's a part of Sales Elite. If you're not a part of Sales Elite, definitely sign up. If you just quickly Google SolarEdge Sales Elite, you'll see it. We have monthly newsletters, other trainings, contests, giveaways, branded swag that says SolarEdge Sales Elite on it that the Brads are getting this time around. I'll have to send it to Anthony too, because he's sponsored by us, right? So so I'll send you some too.
I'll
Anthony.
take it. Appreciate it.
But wanted to make sure we had just a couple more minutes for some questions, and then I think we're going to come back and do a second session that's a kind of a battery deep dive.
Yes, Michelle spoiled it, but yes, we do have you back next Thursday, same time. So super excited about that. But yeah, if anyone else has any feedback or questions, for sure. And something that I advise customers, I've sold a handful of batteries with Powur, and I usually just tell them 2 to 4 weeks additional for engineering and procurement and all that jazz. I also say that like with re-roofs and MPUs and things like that, obviously our goal time is 60 to 90 days. If you're doing a re-roof, well, Brad Lordson might disagree, but maybe with the re-roof, say 30 to 60 days, but with the battery, usually say 2 to 4 weeks additional and things like that. Just so we set proper expectations for the customer. I think solar has a great point from a rep perspective. Obviously, that's going to slow down the income as well. So just keep that in mind as we head closer and start selling more batteries.
What is the kilowatt hour storage capacity of your battery?
10 kilowatt hour.
So it's similar to an Enphase?
In size, but not in efficiency. We have a much more efficient battery than Enphase's side of things. So the size is the same, but your homeowners get about 10 days of free power from us with our efficiency gain.
It's like,
Does it only work with SolarEdge inverters, or can you use it if they already have Enphase? No?
Nope. Yep, it works with SolarEdge.
Okay. What does a battery cost?
What is it in the Powur platform?
15, 16K, somewhere around there, depending on the area. Like with California, obviously we have taxes on all our stuff. Like if you sold one in Texas, it'd probably be like 15.5. Out here in California, it's probably like 16 or 16.5, somewhere around there.
I will say that in the Powur platform, you actually get higher commissions on the SolarEdge batteries, from what I hear. So that's
what
helpful.
I'm told.
All right, we're at the go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, and to confirm as well, because usually there's like a $1,200 to $1,500 cushion or something like that with the battery cells. Usually that is in there for additional engineering cost, additional permitting cost, whatever. But yes, if that is not needed, that then rolls into our margin. So keep that in mind. So it's kind of in there as a cushion. But yeah, if no one else has any questions, we're lucky enough to have Michelle again with us next week, or it looks like Chris has something. I heard there's a workaround for systems expansions to stay on NEM 2 with SolarEdge that you can oversize the inverter.
Yeah. So Chris, currently right now, yes, the verbiage in the NEM policy states that the size is based on the AC nameplate rating. That's a really nerdy way of saying the size of the inverter. So what that means is you can actually add modules, additional modules to that same inverter without swapping it out. Because with SolarEdge, you can oversize to 200%. So say, for example, you have a 7.6, which a lot of times you do use a 7.6. If that has a battery on it, you can go up to 15.2 kW on that same inverter. And so if that homeowner wanted to add modules to it, they could, and they'd be staying in NEM 2. That's what the current language says. I will tell this group I'm cautiously optimistic about that, because the utility could come back right before NEM launches and says, oh, we changed our mind. So I will say that is what it says now. That's what they're confirming now. We're waiting until April to get super excited about that.
That's positive. So awesome. If no one else has any questions, if you do have questions, write them down. And we will continue this next week.
Yeah, we'll be
Is there a
back.
way to get a copy of this presentation? This is pretty useful information. Is there like a
It's
PDF
recorded.
or-
Yeah, Michelle's
Yeah, I can send
presentation?
a presentation over to Anthony and he can give it to the rest of the group.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Beautiful.